So everybody loves to have pockets on their bags because it makes it really nice and convenient to put all your things in different compartments. And what I quite like to do on most of my bags is include this lovely zip frame that goes around it. So for example, you could always have that in a contrast leather or something like that. So it's quite a fiddly technique to sort of cut them out. So we're going to show you in this little how-to, a preview from one of our courses on how to actually cut the zip frame out and sew the whole lot. We're now going to be prepping your lovely zip frame in the leather, ready for the zip to be inserted at the back. So what we're going to need to do is cut like a little rectangle out of the fusing and also out of the leather. So what I always do in class is kind of get everyone to do the fusing first. So it almost gives you like a little prep run for then doing the leather after. So place your fusing pattern back onto the bit of fusing that you've pre-cut. Draw yourself that inner window. And then the best process for this is using the rotary cutter, placing the ruler onto one of the lines, and again tend to work to the left first so that when you're cutting, if it makes a mistake, it's only going to affect this inner bit that will actually be coming out in a minute. So spin them over again. And what you're trying to do, so with the rotary cutter, you really don't want to go past this line here. So I tend to start about 1/2 centimetre up from this end and stop about 1/2 centimetre shy from the other end. And then we can finish it off with a pair of scissors because it wants to have a lovely right angle right at the top bit. So continuing your line on both sides. And then spin them round, and then you're just going to come across that end bit very carefully so that that whole piece comes out in one. So that's the fusing done, and we're now going to repeat exactly the same thing in the leather. So placing the pattern on. This time using an awl, you're going to stab it through at the very corners here. Make sure you can definitely see your line. And then I absolutely love using the board underneath as a reference. So if you keep that coming along one of the straight lines, and then if you have one, a pattern master is absolutely wonderful at this stage because you can see through it. But if you don't have one, don't worry, you can always use the metal ruler. Now this leather zip frame is a 1.5 border of leather all the way around. So on the pattern master, there is actually a 1.5 line. So I've put that all the way along the raw edge of the leather. And if it needs it at all, you know, you can manipulate it so it's completely straight because we know that we originally cut this absolutely perfect. So if you just line that up against the line and then using the rotary again, we're going to make sure we don't go beyond our dots. Just start a little bit further up and we can finish that off with scissors. Always remembering to turn it round. So this inner section here is 1 centimetre wide strip of leather that we're cutting out. So if anyone prefers to use a craft knife at this stage to finish off these angles, that's absolutely fine. And the most important thing with the leather is to continue the line up to those dots, then come across. And just go really steady. You're trying to make that the most beautiful right angle ever. So it has no additional little lines coming up. Don't want to go beyond your awl dot. Exactly the same on the other end. So that whole section's come out, and now this is all ready for bonding the fusing onto the back of the leather. We're now going to be sewing around the outer edge of your zip frame. So we're going to start up in one corner and we're going to do no back tacks. We're just going to go straight forward, straight away, leaving lovely long tails at the beginning. And then we're pivoting in each of the corners. And when you come back up along here on your final stitch, I want you to fall back into the first hole where you'd started and leave the threads really nice and long because we're going to do a manual pulling through to the back. So give your zip frame a little spray with a silicone spray. And I have scored myself a line, so if you'd like to have something to follow, it's recommended to give yourself a little score line. And you should be okay to not have to pull the puller back at all here, so I'm just going to leave it closed. Now it's important with the zip frame, when you get to about here, to make sure that it's not distorted at all. It should be that your double-sided tape is really holding it completely straight. But if for any reason it started to distort it, just put it back in line because it's important that this is nice and straightly sewn on. So getting up to that point, again, I'm just going to use the hand wheel because that way you feel like you're really getting into the exact point where you want it to pivot. So you might need to here just roll your lining fabric up so that you can pivot round and it not get in the way. Need a little cheeky half stitch there. So with that final stitch, I'm falling right back into the hole where I'd started, and then I'm going to be able to lift the needle out. Thread's really nice and long, and then we'll show you the next stage.